The Irish Easter Rebellion of 1916 was crushed, and the 7 men that led the revolution were all executed. But they became martyrs, and they inspired the Irish people to continue the revolution for the next 6 years. One young leader that the British didn't execute, that they wished that they had, was Michael Collins. And he picked up the mantle of James Connelly and became the leader of the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and a new leftist political party called Sinn Féin, which means we ourselves. It was a party representing the working class. Another leader that the British didn't shoot was Georgine Markowitz, who was James Connolly's top lieutenant. The British refused to shoot her because she was a woman. They wouldn't execute a woman. And she was such a feminist that she was enraged that they refused to shoot her because she was a woman. But she went on to lead a very long and distinguished career fighting for Irish freedom. And eventually, she actually became the first woman to serve in the British Parliament as a member of Parliament, and the first woman to serve as a cabinet minister in the British cabinet. Getting back to Michael Collins continued the fight, but he had learned from James Connolly's mistakes that you don't fight a stand-up battle with an empire. You fight a guerrilla war. Then, of course, the empire maligns you as a bloody terrorist. And for the next 80 years, the IRA would fight the British Empire. And one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So while the mainstream media was calling the IRA the bloody terrorists, the British Empire was 1,000 times worse terrorists, and they had terrorized Ireland for 800 years. But after 6 years, Michael Collins and the IRA actually defeated the British, and the British gave Ireland pretty much their independence by creating the Irish Free State in 1922. But then, unfortunately, civil war broke out in Ireland, the Irish Civil War, in which basically this, in my point of view, was a class war, which James Connolly always felt would happen between Sinn Féin, the IRA, and the working class against the more conservative Irish. And at the end of this civil war, Michael Collins was assassinated, and the Conservative Party essentially took over Ireland for the next 100 years, right up to the very present time. And as James Connolly, the Marxist radical, had always worried, the social structure of Ireland didn't hardly change at all, with now, instead of English Protestant capitalists exploiting the Irish Catholic workers, now they were being exploited by Irish Catholic capitalists. Let's fast forward, though, to 2008. With the incredible, the worldwide meltdown, financial meltdown, and incredible austerity that happened in Ireland in 2008, right up to pretty much the present time, Sinn Féin has made a comeback. For the first time in 100 years, Sinn Féin got the most votes of any political party in the Republic of Ireland. Not enough votes to form a government, but they are a very strong opposition. And the president of Sinn Féin today is Mary Lou McDonald, a woman, a pretty amazing woman. I follow her on Facebook. And Mary Lou McDonald sounds a lot more like Bernie Sanders than she does the radical James Connolly, for better or for worse. Now, to say a couple of words about Northern Ireland. So here's Northern Ireland with these 6 counties up here in the north, which was originally ethnically cleansed of Irish Catholics by Queen Elizabeth I in the 1600s. But in modern times, it's majority English Protestant, but they're still close to half the people are Irish Catholic. And so in the 1960s, the Irish Catholics in Northern Ireland have been brutally treated, or treated horribly in Northern Ireland, often a lot the way Black people have been treated here in the United States. In the 1960s, in the United States, we had all the major civil rights unrest with Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and the Black Panthers. Well, the same thing was going on in Northern Ireland at this time. Only in Northern Ireland, it was much, much bloodier. And I bring in the last great revolutionary today that I would like to talk about. Her name was Bernadette Devlin. And she was a fiery leftist activist. And all these leftist activists in Northern Ireland were also very much in solidarity with the Black Panthers in the United States. But Bernadette Devlin in the 1960s was 20 years old. And she was one of the counties in Northern Ireland is actually majority Catholic. So she was elected as the member of parliament to represent Northern Ireland in the British Parliament, because maybe I didn't say it, Northern Ireland is still part of United Kingdom. It's not part of the Republic of Ireland. So she was elected to represent this county in the British Parliament and became the youngest woman ever to serve in the British Parliament. She was 20 years old. And she went into the British Parliament and she would have these epic screaming matches with all the rest of the members of Parliament until eventually they shut her up and wouldn't let her speak anymore. And so she actually walked across to the parliamentarian who shut her up, and this small woman, Bernadette Devlin, and she punched the member of the parliamentarian. Bernadette Devlin was the keynote speaker at a peaceful protest, unarmed protesters in 1972 in the city of Derry in Northern Ireland. And the British Army opened fire on unarmed protesters and shot 15 protesters in the back as they were running away. This became known as Bloody Sunday. And it kicked off 26 years of back and forth horrible violence in Northern Ireland. They actually tried to assassinate Bernadette Devlin. They shot her 9 times in front of her children, but she miraculously survived. It wasn't until 1998 that the violence mostly ended with the Good Friday Agreement. Jerry Adams, the president of Sinn Féin, is shaking hands with President Bill Clinton, who helped to negotiate the agreement. You see Hillary in the background. And as I'm speaking here today on April 13th, 2021, there has been a lot of violence lately in Northern Ireland again. No one has been killed, but it's become a major issue. It's been in the front pages for several days today, on this day. I don't know when you'll be watching this video, but the violence hopefully won't be coming back. But I'd like to add, this is the last part of a 7-part presentation that I've been given, and Bernadette Devlin takes her place among all the great revolutionaries of Ireland from the past that I have talked about in this presentation. Bernadette Devlin, Theodore Wolfe Tone, Robert Emmet, the St. Patrick's Brigade in the United States, Padraig Pearse, Georgine Markowitz, Michael Collins, and of course, the great James Connelly.